So after the Russia state stuff, after the Nunes and that committee, where did you go from there? And how did you get there? Because I think this was, you start to accelerate a little bit after this.
No, Devin, true to his word, helped me get over the NSC. And shortly thereafter, I was running counterterrorism for the White House, which was the job I had ultimately wanted. My background was in counterterrorism, and I built up a portfolio in operations and policy and civilian military roles in that arena. And then I had just come off a tenure at House Intel where, we actually did other work, surprise, surprise to other people, but
Shocker.
we oversaw the intelligence apparatus, which is a massive, massive organization. So I continued to learn a ton about how the various agencies and departments operate within government. And then I finally made it to the NSC and got the role that I was fighting to get, which was, hey, I think I can run counterterrorism for President Trump, and that was awesome. That was
who
really
hired you? Do you have an interview with the big man with that, or how does that work?
No, at the time I came in, the president and this, now you have to remember, I still have not met President Trump when I got to the NSC. I still not had a conversation with President Trump. We hadn't exchanged messages or letters. But President Trump had begun to know about me because of the good graces of like the Devin Nuneses, the Jim Jordans, the John Ratcliffes, the Lee Zeldins of the world would tell him, we were in that foxhole together on the Hill battling the Russiagate thing. And when we got vindication, they were kind enough to relay to the president my small role in that. So I think he had become aware of me. And Devin, true to his word, wanted me to get that counterterrorism role. So the first way in was under Bolton, and the president, basically wanted me on his National Security Council. So that's how I immediately got in.
Interesting. Working for John Bolton on the National Security Council, heading up counterterrorism. It's impressive, bro. Very impressive.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of a story there. That guy doesn't exactly love me.
Yeah. What's the story?
So Bolton didn't want to hire me, flat out. And actually, when Devin brought it back to the president's attention that I still wasn't at the National Security Council, that wasn't received lightly. He thought I was already there. And then I was extended an offer at a level and a position that was much different than the one I was going at, because they thought I would turn it down. And I said, no, absolutely not. It's the White House, it's the National Security Council. I'm going to go do whatever you tell me to go do. And then I'm going to bust my ass and get the job I want, which is what I did. And then obviously we got rid of Bolton. So it tells you all you need to know about that guy.
Right, exactly. I did remember getting some reports from people on inside when Bolton came in that the efficiency increased. At least Bolton knew how to push memos and paper and run the bureaucracy. But people certainly weren't very happy with the policy prescriptions or the recommendations or even the way in which he went about it. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so you're now at the NSC. You're working on counterterrorism, and we have like 17 minutes left, and I have like two other big questions that I definitely want to get to, but I am curious about this in particular. With your experience with counterterrorism and understanding how we go around the world, tracking people down, how we're occupying force in Afghanistan and Iraq, and all of our troops and forces there are geared towards counterterrorism, and to what extent should the American people be afraid that this American empire, which has basically been training itself on counterterrorism, buying all the counterterrorism toys, training people with 20 years worth of counterterrorism experience, how worried should we be that apparatus is going to be turned on us here in the United States? Because we now know that President Joe Biden said at a joint session of Congress that white supremacy is terrorism, and it is the number one terrorist threat that we face. All the same 17 intelligence agencies that said Russia collusion was a thing all say the same thing about white supremacy being the biggest terrorist threat that we face. To what extent, A, is that true? And B, to what extent should the American people be afraid that the whole apparatus is going to be turned on white supremacists, and we know what that means, here in the United States?
Yeah, no, two great questions. So for months now, I've been demanding, at least on the media that I would do, to talk about national defense and national security of this administration. And because we've been asking, what is their policy? What are you doing against Iran and Russia and China? What are you doing to prosecute targets in the Middle East and work with our allies in some not so nice places? What is your policy? And the policy was, well, what did Trump do? We're going to do the opposite. And that's not a policy. That's how you get a country in danger. And that's not what the American people deserve from our leadership. And all it is a politicization of the defense of this country, our intelligence apparatus, and our military. That's what he's doing by saying, oh, white supremacy is a greater threat than Al-Qaeda, than ISIS. White supremacy is a greater threat than what China is doing to us right now on the intellectual property side. White supremacy is a greater threat than what Russia is doing to us on a counterintelligence platform. That is the definition of moronic. And all it does is it politicizes, and it allows the mainstream media to gobble it up and feed it back out to the 51% of the Americans that want to see it. And if you ask, to the second part of your question, it's a nice segue, if you ask the people that serve, the people that I served with that continue to serve, they know white supremacy is not the number one national defense issue for the United States of America. These guys aren't going to fall asleep on the wall. They're not going to turn the switches off in Afghanistan without safeguarding our interests. They're not going to leave Iraq and Syria and Somalia because we've been told at home white supremacy is what you should be watching out for downrange. And so that, having worked with those men and women, they're not going to stop. So they will take their marching orders like good folks do in service, but they're not going to stop with the service of protecting this nation. And that gives me great comfort. What pisses me off is the politicization of it at the top. And I've talked to so many people who are still in, and they say, look, we understand that's what they're saying. We're doing our job down here, what we signed up to do. And if there's a white supremacy target that becomes a reality, you bet we're going to tell people about them that need to know. But if terrorism's a bigger threat, yeah, we're going to do that. And hey, how about bringing home some more hostages? We're going to do that. And we need to still kick Iran continuously into submission, because they're not just going to hand over their nuclear arsenal to us or give us back our hostages. It's never going to happen when the Ayatollah is still in charge. You do make progress on it when you kill Qasem Soleimani. But I don't think we'll see any more of that type of action under this administration.
No, definitely not. In your experience as a top counterterrorism official, the National Security Council, do you have any evidence to support the notion that white supremacy is the top terrorist threat facing our country?
No, zero.
Do you believe that the administration today, the Biden administration today, putting this notion at the top of the national agenda is a risk to national security and the security of the citizens of the United States of America?
Yes, because it is an administration that is serving the interest of the media. The media wants him to say things such as white supremacy is the number one national security problem with America, because the media will then take it and run with it. And then morons in professional sports will tweet about it and put it up on Facebook and say, okay, everyone that worked for President Trump is a racist. And we're still looking for the white supremacist who is running president's national security infrastructure. And that is a threat. That is an intentional threat that should be batted away by a Republican or Democratic administration. 100%, unless and until the intelligence actually supports it. And this is a continuation of the narrative that they wanted to run from January 6th onward, which has continued to be debunked in terms of white supremacists driving this activity that they now keep calling this insurrection that actually did not lead directly to the deaths of the people that they say died. Yeah. But it's so many months beyond it that they've allowed their narrative to be written, and it's been trumpeted by everyone who wants to take a knee when our national anthem is sung, and everyone who wants more attention because they think they have a position of power in sports Yet they've actually never really done anything to unify this country. All they've done is divide it.